Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. So the last verse we discussed, remember, about the Jews that were who disobeyed, and he said Allah Ta'ala will forgive us. And then Allah Ta'ala spoke about who the true ones are. وَالَّذِينَ يُمَسِّكُونَ بِالْكِتَابِ, those who hold firm on the kitab. وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةِ, they established their salah. They said, إِنَّا لَا نُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُصْلِحِينَ. So we discussed that in detail. It was over a few days. We done it in detail, in detail. So now, inshallah, we do a new verse. The new verse, will you read a new verse? Bismillah. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وإذ نتقنا الجبل فوقهم كأنه ظلة وظنوا أنه واقع بهم خذوا ما آتيناكم بقوة واذكروا ما فيه لعلكم تتقون. So Allah Ta'ala says, and when we raised the mountain above them as though it was a canopy and they thought it was falling upon them, we should hold firmly what we had given you and remember what is therein so that you may become God-fearing. So this verse here, 171, right? The next verse describes another incident of the Israelites when they were forced to promise their obedience to the law of the Torah. It also been mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. The Arabic word nataqna signifies drawing or lifting up. In Surah Al-Baqarah, the word rafa'na has been used, which denotes the act of raising up. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas has therefore taken the word nataqna to signify raising high, and dhulla means a shade or canopy. The verse refers to the time when the Prophet Musa alayhi salam came back from the Mount Sinai with the book of Torah. They found therein many injunctions which they thought were difficult for them to follow. They started showing unwillingness for obeying these commandments. Allah Ta'ala commanded the Archangel Jibril to raise the Mount of Sinai upon the town. The area of the town is thought to have been 3 square miles. When the Mount of Sinai was hanged over their heads, they fell down, prostrating themselves under fear and promised their disobedience to the law of Moses. The future events ever witnessed the deviation from the law every now and again. Okay, so what happened? You see, remember we told you, we discussed this earlier a couple of verses ago, that Musa alayhi salam went to Mount Sinai, Turi Sinai, right? Sin, Ya, Nun, Alif, Hamza, right? And then Allah Ta'ala gave him the Torah, and Allah Ta'ala gave him the laws, etc., right? So when Musa alayhi salam came back with the laws to them, and the Jews were full of tricks. You see now so many laws. How can we practice upon this here? How can we practice on all this type of things? This is too difficult. When they came with the Jews were full of tricks. When they came with the instructions, slaughter a cow. Now, what type of cow? What's the age of the cow? What is the color of the cow, etc. Now, when they came with laws to practice upon, no, no, no. This is too much laws, full of tricks, full of shararat, full of mischievousness. So now when Musa alayhi salam came, they said, no man, we can't practice upon all this. Too much for us. So here as the verse says, remember, I told you, we discussed this earlier, we the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we take it in the literal sense, we don't take it in the figurative sense. So the angel Jibril literally raised the mountain above them and said, look here, are you going to practice upon this? Like, just makes me think like sometimes maybe a child is naughty, the parent gave the child some instruction, they do this or be home by this time. Now the child come late. So now the parents, picture the parents saying the bell is saying, will you do it again? Will you come late again? Or will you do this not? Will you smoke again? Will you smoke again? And he says, yes, I won't smoke. He lower the belt. He says, I will smoke again. Or you don't want to commit, whack him. So you got the belt hovering above him. You got the cane hovering above him. So here the mountain was raised above him. That look here, are you going to practice? You ask for this. You ask that you want to see Allah Ta'ala. You ask you want to speak to Allah Ta'ala. You ask all this now. Musa alayhi salam has come to you with the laws. Are you going to practice or not? If you don't, so they fell prostrate. They said, Ya Allah, so we will practice. We will practice. But as you know, as per the habit, how they say in English, leopard never changes spots. They say in Arabic, إذا سمعتم الجبل انتقل عن مكان فصدقوه. that if you hear a mountain has moved from one place to another place, you can believe it. But if you hear that somebody has changed his habits, don't believe him. Leopard never changes his spots, right? So they said, yeah, well, we will practice, we will practice, we'll practice. But when the time came, they wouldn't practice. Right. The above instance gives rise to a question why the Israelites were forced to make the promise of the obedience while the Holy Quran has declared La ikrah fi din. So here is an interesting discussion here. And the interesting discussion is this: we know that from Islamic point of view, you don't force anybody to do. You don't look, we give you free choice. If you want to become a Muslim, that's why look here also in a Muslim country, you don't force the non-Muslim to become Muslim. That's why, like, look here, you've done this. I think you've done Mawlana Rashid, Kitabul Jihad, right? What happened when the Muslims come to a foreign land? What they say? They say, look here, you can live under us. You can practice whatever religion you want. You got freedom of religion. Although there'll be some restrictions, you can't. That's a separate issue. You can't build new churches. You can't build new mosques. You must just use that churches, whatever. But you can pay your jizya. You pay as a tax. We will look after you. We will protect you, right? So it is all. Actually, I got a order with me. So first is become a Muslim. Islam. You become a Muslim and you live as a Muslim under us, right? You live as a Muslim and you enjoy all the benefits of us. You enjoy the protection of the Khalifa. You don't have the tax. So Islam, right? If you don't want Islam, you can maintain your religion. You can maintain your religion. You're a Christian, you can say as a Christian. You want to be a Jew, you can say as a Jew, right? And what you pay the tax. And if you refuse that, then it's safe. Then we have to fight. Then we have to. Then we're gonna subjugate you forcefully, right? So the point here that I'm trying to make is that's why the verse is La ikraha fi din. You don't force anybody to accept Islam. Just at this point, something relevant to what we're discussing now. The present day Iran. It was called Khurasan. This was all Sunni lands. That's why your Muslim Sharif, your Tirmidhi Sharif, all of kitabs, it was authored in those lands. This was the Sunni hub. But then the Ismaili Shias, they came to power by the sword. By the sword. They converted all the Sunnis into Shias. Like how they said, Shiism or safe. Shiism or safe. You either become a Shia or otherwise you lose your life. So that is the history. The Shias got a bloody history of treachery, of killing the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, of stabbing in their back, etc. But it's a separate subject we will discuss. So like nowadays, people are asking all the time, now what should we be doing? What should we be doing here? You've got the Shias fighting the Jews. So they want to know who we're supposed to be supporting. We have serious ideological differences with the Shias. Serious ideological differences. And the Shia throughout the ages, they talk to cause havoc amongst the Muslims, etc., amongst the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But at the same time, when it comes to supporting them against this, when it comes to the fight with the Zionists, we will support them because we'll say that Allah Ta'ala is using them. So they're like, بالظالمين بظالمين وأخرجنا منها الصالمين. Allah Ta'ala strike and smite the oppressors with the oppressors and let us come out unscathed. So in that sense, so not because we have ideological affinity with them or we agree with the modus operandi or that we agree with their theology or the aqidah. They were also the killer of many, many Sunnis in recent history. Not, I told you in the past how they killed the people, they massacred the Sunnis to become Shias in recent history in Syria, in those places. So we only support them that Allah Ta'ala can use them to break the arrogance of the Suhuniya, of the Zionists. Anyway, the way we're going from one thing to the other thing. So the main thing I was telling you is you don't force a person to become a Muslim. There's no compulsion in faith. La ikraha fi din. So now the question comes about if there's no compulsion in faith, if you want to become a Christian, you stay a Christian, but you will face the consequences in the Akhirah. If you want to be a Jew, you want to be a Hindu, you will remain a Jew, you will be Hindu, but you will face the consequences. So outwardly, it seems as though this incident is what? It is against the freedom of religion. They were threatened, or you can say they were coerced, you must accept. So the above incident gives rise to a question Why the Israelites were forced to make a promise of the obedience while the Holy Quran has declared La ikrah fi din. There is no compulsion in faith. The answer is quite simple. None of the disbelievers have ever been forced to accept faith. No, anyone is allowed to use force for this purpose. However, those who have already entered the covenant of faith out of their own free will later deviate from the commands of Allah just for avoiding the commitments shall be essentially be forced to abide by the rules and the regulations of the law. In case of deviation from their duty, they must be held liable to punishments prescribed by the law. This is what exactly happened in this incident. They had already believed in Allah Ta'ala and His Prophet and had entered the covenant of faith. What they did was to deny from obeying the laws of the Torah and rightly were forced to fulfill their commitment. To understand this, it's very simple. They look here, you as an individual, you're not bound to come and sit us by this madrasa, right? You can do what you want to. Right? But once you enter the madrasa, what must you do? You have to follow the laws. So same thing, once you enter the religion of Islam, once you enter the religion of Islam, now you must obey the law. So if you are a Muslim and you don't, that's why according to Hazrat Imam Allah Ta'ala, if you accept, if you a Muslim and you don't pray, you don't read your salah on time, what happens? You will be imprisoned. The other madhab say, Tariqu salah will be killed. A person who leave out the salah will be killed. Nah? According to our madhab, you won't be killed, you will be imprisoned. The same thing here. But once these people have accepted the religion of Islam, or these people have accepted the religion of Judaism, etc., right? So now since they've accepted, they are bound by the laws. They have to follow the laws. They don't have a choice in the matter. Okay, we stop there, man. We'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. Bas.